Hi, I'm going to, in this video today, show you a quick look at Lightroom Classic. It's not meant to be a tutorial by any means. It's not even going to be an introduction to the tools in any depth at all, but just a look at the general principles of how it works. And then there'll be a tutorial to, well, not a tutorial, there'll be a quick look at Photoshop Elements afterwards as well, so that you can get a quick idea of the difference between the two programs. So we're currently in the library mode of Lightroom Classic. There's a few other modes here as well. The develop mode is the big one where you will do all of the editing and adjusting the image. And then these are more to do with what you will do with the image after you've finished editing it. So you import your images into Lightroom. I've only imported a few at the moment. You could import your entire collection or lots and lots of different, collections. You can sort them into collections here. I've not started doing that yet. I've only got 27 images in the whole of Lightroom at the moment. What I'm going to do is I've got this one particular image here that I'm going to click on. I've highlighted it and I'm going to take it into the develop mode and we can have a quick look there. I've got it set up currently so that it is displaying a before and after screen, so before and after there, and you can see my histogram here at the top. We start over here on the right generally in this area where I would correct anything that is wrong about the image. So there are a few things with this image that you can see. It's a very bright sunny day, and when I've shot it I've exposed for the sky to keep as much of this detail of the steam and the blue sky as I can, which has led to the bottom area of the photograph being underexposed. Because this is a raw file, we've got a lot of scope for rescuing both these highlights and these shadows here. So the histogram tells me that there are a lot of dark pixels which we can see on the image, and there are also some peaks of very bright areas, but I don't think I've actually literally overexposed any, because the grey here is not peeking off up the top. It's something in the blues that's peeking off, and I'm not too worried about that. You've got your image info here, your settings. You've then got a crop tool, a healing tool, and some brushes and things like a red eye and some brushes and filters and things there, which I'm not going to go into today, other than I might quickly use the cropping and healing, but I'll do that in a little while when I've worked out how I'd like to crop this image. You've then got what's called the treatment, the colour profile here. Now I'm just going to click on that. It's here, sorry, the colour profile. It's set at Adobe Colour at the moment. You can change this, and it's pretty much like the creative styles on your camera. So I could make it more landscape colours, which has made the greens more intense, the blues and browns more intense, portrait, which will have sort of made it more sympathetic to skin tones, the Adobe Standard colour palette, colour profile, and the Adobe Vivid colour profile. So I'm going to keep it just to Adobe Colour for the moment. There are some black and white. I think that might be set on black and white because that's something I did to it earlier anyway, but we can ignore that. We've then got the white balance, and this sort of panel here where it says basic, if I close that you can see, and I open it again, I've got what's called the basic amends here, and I can sort the white balance out just like you would in Photoshop Elements and Photoshop itself as well. I can sort the exposure, the highlights, the shadows and things like that. So the white balance, it's as shot at the moment. I can have a quick look at what it looks like if I do it on auto, and it's warmed it up considerably, hasn't it? I could also decide to have a look at it in daylight. It's gone much cooler, cloudy, a bit warmer again. Now I actually think that now that I've done this, that this image was perhaps a little bit cool to start off with, so I've warmed it up marginally, and I could take that a little bit more if I wanted to by just literally sliding the slider here, cool to warm. So you could do that by eye. You can also get your dropper here and try and find some grey area in the image. We've got perhaps, there we go, we've got kind of grey there, and click on that and it will change the colour again. So you've got a number of different methods here. I think I'm going to leave it on that kind of cloudy setting. I quite liked it. It was just a tad warmer. You can see it more on this area versus that, if you look. Then we've got the exposure. Now, there's a few things I need to correct here before I mess about with the overall exposure. I'd like to work on the highlights and shadows. So I'm going to take the highlights down, and you can really see the detail starting to come in the sky. In fact, it's brought in what might be dirt in the sensor into visibility there, and it's making these steam. You could say it's taken that down a little bit too much, so you could go back a little bit so that you're not taking the highlights up quite as much. Okay, then a big area that we can work on is the shadows, and look at the difference there. By tweaking that, we can get the difference back into, get some detail back into this shadowy area down here. I mean, you know, you're starting to see a lot more detail down here in these wheels. So take that as far as you want. This is to do with the white and black points in the image. I've not finished studying what they do at the moment, but you don't normally have to adjust them too much. But it's more likely the highlights and shadows that you'll be worried about. This next tool, texture, it kind of, if I take it to the nth degree, you look at the image, it's really kind of brought out, you know, look at the leaves, it's almost like it's almost a bit like sharpening, isn't it? So just tweak this very slightly to get some sort of more detail in on your engine and some more definition and texture to it. That's what it's kind of doing. You can see it more on this rusty element here. It's kind of brought that out a bit more. Clarity is not quite, it's not really like sharpening. It's more about contrast in a way. I know that sounds a bit confusing when you've got contrast up there. You've got dehaze, which if I you see there's a haze, you see it takes away the haze. So you could use that to kind of get a little bit more definition back in that sky if you wanted to. You've then got vibrance and saturation. And again, I'm not going to go into detail in all of these, but these are the sort of sliders that you can have a play around with on your image. I'm not going to talk about tone, curve. You might be familiar with curves from Snapseed and Photoshop, and then you've got some other options here. Detail is open already here, and that's sharpening and things like that. It's already sharpened it to 40. I think that's kind of default that it opens on, or it might be the last thing I used it at. So that's about right for me. I'm happy with that. Get rid of noise using this luminance slider here. Shot was taken at 200, so it doesn't suffer from that. And if there'd have been any distortion caused by a wide-angle lens or things like that, you can then start to mess about with these settings here. You can close any of the boxes and open them just by clicking on the arrow. So that's the major adjustments that you do on that side. Let's have a look now at whether or not the image needs straightening or cropping or anything. So let's click on the crop tool, and we go to just one view, the after view. Now the angle tool here, this is quite good. If you click on that and then you draw a line down something that you feel should be straight. So say we feel that this train should be straight because actually it's leaning slightly to the right. I could draw a line down this line here, and you see how it's adjusted that and made that now absolutely perpendicular and straight, and it's shown you where it's going to crop, and it's only cropping within the boundaries because I think we've got something locked to make it do that. And then I can also choose to crop the image itself. So if we then click on aspect, and we go to how we want to crop it. So I'm actually going to crop this as I think I'm going to do it as a 5:7. So what you can also do here now is by pressing the O on your keyboard, you can put different overlays on here for different to help you with the composition basically. So we had the rule of thirds a second ago. We've now got diagonals and triangles, and we've got the slightly more sophisticated rule of thirds, and we've got the golden spiral. You can flip these. I think it's Shift O to flip them and use them in a different way, so that you can kind of see how that would work. And then, so that's not really a great one for this picture, that tool. So I'm probably just going to stick with, I don't really need any of the overlays on there, to be honest. I'm happy with the composition of the shot, but now I am going to move, oops, right, this is where you can see that I'm not fully to grips with this yet. So I'm just going to do Command Z to undo that. And I've got my, right, that's what I was looking for, a hand symbol. I think I'd clicked over here on aspect by accident. And then I can slide my image around to see. So I'd actually like to make sure that I've got the whole of the front end of the train in, and that I've cropped a bit away from this back end. And in fact, I might do that as an 8x10 and just crop it like that. I've got to get used to sliding it like this. It's different to Photoshop. And then my chaps actually are kind of more on or in a third as well, aren't they? So maybe that's a bit nicer. Okay, so anyway, I won't wrestle with that for too much longer. I'm going to press done on that and go to my before and after. It doesn't show you before the crop. Don't know why it doesn't do that, but anyway, it shows you before you did all of the adjustments to the image apart from the cropping. We've got rid of our little dark mark up there, otherwise I could have used the healing tool, just clicked on it and then come over here somewhere. So let's find something else to heal on here. I'll heal one of these rivets or whatever they are now. So you make your brush a little bit bigger. This is a shortcut key I'm doing to this, and then you click on there. And what it does is shows you the area that it took from to copy over. So I could move that and say, okay, copy from there, please, instead, so that I'm not in danger of getting that by accident. And then I can carry on cropping a few other, sorry, not cropping, healing out, cloning out any other things that I want to get rid of. I'm going to press done on that. So I've now basically done everything I want to do over on this side, and what starts getting interesting then is you can move across to the left here, and this is where you get your presets. Now this is a bit like using filters in Snapseed and in Instagram, where you can overlay basically you can just use a filter over your image, and you can these ones I have purchased. I'll talk about that in a moment, but I can go through these and I can pick out any that I might want to use. So there's lots of different black and white looks here. Sorry if I faded off a little bit then, I was looking over to the left away from the microphone. So you've got all of those different presets. You've also got some that come with Lightroom, but I think a lot of people buy presets. Some people create their own if they've got enough knowledge of the program. You know, their favourite way of editing over here, and some of the things that they do. I mean, I've only shown you a quick highlight of it. Then they can record it and create their own preset. So I'm not at that level yet, but I am going to do a lot of work with Lightroom and you know, start really getting to grips with it. There are different ways of making the image black and white. I could go back to the colour profile and I could go to Adobe Monochrome, and there then, if I click here, will be, if I scroll down, you will see that there's quite a lot of different black and whites, and all I have to do is hover over here. The blue areas are where is telling me I'm in danger of shadows being completely underexposed. But all I have to do is hover over these to see the difference that it's going to make to the image, and I can also decide how much I want that to be applied by. So at the moment it's there, so say I chose this artistic filter here, I could then say I don't want it to apply quite strongly, or I'd like to apply it really strongly. Okay, so you can fine-tune this to how you want to. So you can, you know, do the black and white through the profile here. Okay, I'm going to go back to the profile that I actually had before, which was just Adobe Color. because I quite liked the vivid nature of it. I do like this shot in black and white as well, but anyway, we'll leave it in colour for the moment. But then over here, I've got a fair amount of learning to do yet on these presets, but you can see the principle of it, that you can click on it, and again, I would imagine that you can change the intensity of the particular filter as well, but again, that's something that I'm still working on. You can also use brushes to lighten, darken, warm up, desaturate, etc. Lots of just specific areas. Again, I'm still kind of in the process of looking at that, but for the moment I'm going to get off that filter. I don't want any filter on here, so I'm going to actually just Command Z to undo the black and white presets that I put on there, and I'm going to imagine that I've now finished with this, so that this video isn't any longer. So I'm going to just go File. There's lots of different ways, I'm sure, that you can export, develop, etc. You can do these things where I think you're not saving a full big file, you're saving lots of different kind of snapshots of how different ways you've edited this. Now again, I'm going to be reading up on that. I've not got to that section yet, but I worked out pretty quickly that if I want to, all I've got to do is File, Export, and put it to the same folder as the original file. I wouldn't always do that, but I'm going to in this respect, and export it. It's saying that there is one in there already called that, so I'm just going to overwrite it actually, because I know it's not that important for me. Normally I might rename it. Okay, so Lightroom Classic, you get it included with Adobe Creative Cloud, which is currently at about £8 or £9, $10 I think per month. I've downloaded a tutorial by a guy called Andrew S. Gibson that Marie Tate kindly told me about. I'm finding that I love his books anyway. I've bought lots of his ebooks on taking pictures, editing pictures, you know, all sorts of stuff. But I'm finding his tutorial absolutely fantastic, and I would recommend it. And I would recommend that you buy the bundle of 3 together that covers library, develop, and then I can't remember what the final one's called, but it's about using all of this stuff. And you can also get, I think, with that bundle, his black and white presets, which are over here. So I think that's it for this video, and I will shortly record one for Photoshop for you to show you in principle how that works as well.